Hey, hey, welcome back to Make Discomfort Your Bitch. My guest today is Kelly Lorenzen. Kelly, tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
So
it.
excited you're here.
I have been an entrepreneur for 20 something years, grew up, born and raised in Arizona. So I'm a native of Arizona. Family's still all here, or a lot of the family is still all here. So I have a good network of family and friends being in one place for so long. My favorite thing to do outside of work is travel with family. We love seeing new places. We made a point to have never see the same place twice unless obviously family is there. So we get to go to lots of new places all the time.
I love that. We had a conversation about that a little while ago, and I was enthralled. And you went to some pretty spectacular places this past summer, Lake Como, I think.
Yep, Lake Como, Milan, and Sardinia.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
Very cool. I'm
yeah.
so glad you're here. We have a lot of different avenues we can go down. But tell me a little bit about some discomfort that you have navigated and what's been the trajectory of it? Where did you begin with navigating challenges with that space? And then where did you end up?
Right out of college, I got into business ownership. It's all I know in my adult life is some sort of business ownership. So I think with that, with entrepreneurship comes discomfort. It's a necessity. You have to be okay with it, right? It's just part of the gig. So I think the most uncomfortable is selling yourself, in any entrepreneurship journey. You have to get comfortable with selling yourself, right? Um, the journey luckily started with me selling houses, so I didn't have to sell myself. Um, that's
There's still
easy.
a bit of that, right? Because the relationship with people, that's a very, I look at realtors like they're almost like therapists. They hear probably as much as I do sometimes. Like you are just, it's an intimate relationship with people.
Very intimate
Yeah.
relationship, which led to the discomfort, I think, in that business of when the housing market crashed and I had to start helping people lose their houses instead of buy their dream home. I couldn't stomach it. It was too much discomfort. I had to get out of the business because of the intimate relationship I had built with all of my clients, right? Client
Yeah.
first, customer centric, all the things. They become all friends.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stomach it. So just hurry up and get out of the business was one way to not have to be in the discomfort all the time of that. You just couldn't
Yeah,
stomach.
so that's an interesting thing. You're saying on one hand, discomfort is it's just hand in hand with entrepreneurship. 100% agree. And there is a point, we still need to pay attention to the intensity and the level of it because that has information for us. The information could be, it sounds like in this instance, the information was, I'm pivoting. I've got to change this because this isn't working. Sometimes if it feels like too much discomfort, the information is we need to level up our skill set. Like whatever I'm doing is just, I need to figure it out how to do it differently and better. So there's still that calibration, right?
Yeah,
Of managing the discomfort and knowing
and
what's
listening
what.
to your body. My body was shutting down, and it was a very telltale sign of like you have to get out, because your body every time I have it's too much. My body tries to recalibrate. It knocks me down to the point of like, okay, you're not listening, to all the signs. Okay, we're just gonna knock you completely down, right?
Mhm.
So each time in each business, you get to the point of like, no, can't do that anymore, right? Whatever that threshold is, don't ignore that as a business owner. Just because discomfort comes with the territory doesn't mean you should just go with it all the time, right?
Yeah, like
Can't ignore
operate
it.
in that space where you're just like, it's almost just that adrenaline cortisol you could be operating that space all the time and really not paying attention to your body. Have you, I can definitely pinpoint times, not just with work, but life in general, where I'm pushed enough at my edges that the body speaks to me. And I feel like I've just developed the tools and strategies to try and catch it sooner rather than
Yes.
later. Have you seen that same trajectory where it's like you don't have to wait till you're knocked flat? You can just go, oh, here it is again, it's starting. And so I need to take some different action.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the most, the third business, depending on how you count it, I got knocked down so hard I had to go to the ER, crawl to the car to go to the ER, because I wasn't listening, right, to my body. So that was the second burnout, second phase, right?
Mhm.
And had each time had to change things. So that one was, I figured out I had food allergies. And I didn't realize that my food allergies were causing me to get sick all the time, consistently getting sick. So it can be changing your mindset or changing an actual thing that's happening when you're listening to your body of, oh, this food, right? So I figured out I had celiac and figured out I had a dairy allergy and all these things. Okay, now the next time, then I'm not getting sick anymore, right?
Mhm.
So each burnout phase or discomfort phase, learn something, right, and add it to the toolbox for the next time. I did really well this last year. I found out I had breast cancer. And because of all of those other experiences leading up to it, I was working on my mindset. I was getting professional development. I was getting trauma therapy. I was getting so personal and professional development for the last 15, 20 years before that, not knowing that it was going to have, oh my gosh, here's all the tools to deal something with so significant that it could have knocked me again on my butt,
Yeah.
worse than probably the other ones. And it didn't because I had the mindset, I had the tools in place, I had the team in place to
Mhm.
be, nope, got it. Nope, got this handled. Discomfort is normal as long as you're paying attention.
Yeah. Yes. That is so amazing. Just that you felt like you could open that toolbox and be like, oh, I've got this. It's one of my biggest things that I love to talk about with people the most because we can actually train ourselves for the unexpected by being intentional with the
100%.
work, with just building that toolbox and being self-aware and being in your body. You were talking about like listening to your body. That means we actually have to be in our bodies. And I think it's easy to live in this intellectual space, especially when you're running a business. I mean, because it's not a 9 to 5. We could be working, I think, 24/7 if we really if we didn't
That's
have any
right.
self boundaries around it. And a lot of entrepreneurs do that. And then they just run themselves into the ground. And it sounds like you've just been intentionally building that skill set, taking that information of the really uncomfortable situations, crawling to the emergency room, just wild times, and just, okay, I'm going to do something with this. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to be in my body and listen to it. And sounds like it's
It
working
worked.
for you. It's working
It
for you.
worked. The most important, I think, oh, several, obviously, when you have figured out, when you have cleared all old trauma, you have worked on personal development and counseling and all the things personally. And then on top of it, figured out somebody to help you with mindset and get that figured out. I had both already done. So it wasn't compounding,
Yeah.
right? I had the food stuff figured out, so I wasn't actually physically getting sick, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, if had I had those things compounded, you'd boil over. You know what I mean? But figuring out, okay, I did all those things already. There was nothing. It was like, oh, all right. I can figure this out. And having the mindset like a toddler, I said, was your brain is a toddler when you have something so like discomfort. Oh, right? And it's
Mhm.
like I had to constantly redirect it. You know,
Yeah.
the toddler wants to go this way, and you're like, okay, actually, let's go this way. You know, and you can't say no, right? And you're like, okay, it's okay. Come on, let's go this way. And so every time my
Right.
brain would go, you're gonna die. You're gonna have this crazy. No, I constantly redirected, but the only way I did that is because I already had the tools.
Yeah. It would have been wild. So what you're saying is essentially if you'd gotten that diagnosis and yet you hadn't really dipped a toe in maybe even into the space of building your toolkit, just life, just to navigate life better. And it's not like we're going to anticipate something like cancer, but just to say, hey, I want to do life better. I'm going to build these skills. It just made it less of a knock you flat moment. It sounds like even you're just like, oh, I don't have to do much of a pivot here. And you're right, when we're in stress and trauma of like a diagnosis like that, our brains are going to go back to that old wiring. So even if you've done some of that work, our brain can go, oh, there's a little bit in the recesses of your brain, and we're going to pull that, I'm going to die, or this is going to be horrible. And play that over in the redirection like a toddler. 100% agree. We can all attest to that piece when we're trying to do something different or we are doing something different. The brain needs a lot of instructions, like very intentional instructions. Otherwise, it will run on the automatic of like, I'm going to die
It
or
does.
whatever it is.
Constant, or why did this happen to me? Or,
Mhm.
the depression and all the negative. No, not once did I say, why did this happen to me? I knew I'm going to have to be an advocate now, right? It happened to me on purpose, so that I can be an advocate for other people. And I'd rather it be me because I had all those tools already. I'd already done all the work. It's like, no, I got this. This is, like this is gonna be fine. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's really, really important. It's like an insurance policy, uh,
Mhm.
for yourself to do all the work ahead of time. Have the personal professional development, have the counseling, have the coaches, have the everybody on your team.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurship is not a one person show. This needs to be a team. Build your community, build your tribe, and so that you can lean on
Mhm.
people when you are in that discomfort. Okay, don't just keep it in here, right?
Yeah.
Find somebody like yourself, like find other humans to go through it with so that you're not struggling on your own either.
Yeah. Yeah. The isolation is really compounds the suffering, I think. So we need to be asking for help, which is a huge, I also hear that part. I mean, we can't add people to our village unless we're asking for that, right? We're
Right.
advocating for ourselves, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Always
Yeah.
in search of, okay, I know I really like you as a human. Okay, I know I'm gonna need you at some point. You know what I mean? Like now you're in my world,
Yeah. And
and
you,
leaning on that. It was so
yeah.
cool to have the team around me. It was so easy to take the 2 weeks off, you know, post surgery and come
Mhm.
right back and be totally knowing that I had everybody on board, had my whole village ready.
Well, that's something that you've definitely, I mean, it's either comes naturally to you and or it's a gift, just something that you've developed over time, a skill, because you are an incredible connector. And I can't tell you how many times that Kelly's like introducing me to people or just we're making connections that just make life so much easier when you know people that you can ask and just feel really safe and connected to ask those things.
A
Yeah.
100%. Right. Well, and I feel like the more we connect with other humans that we like, know, and trust, then it doesn't feel like work when you're working. It doesn't, and we're building our community
Hmm.
and we're bettering our community. We're feeding each other's children. Like
Yeah.
because we're all working together and helping each other. So it's really, I don't know, it's just a natural thing I feel like I have to do and want to do all the time.
Yeah. Well, it creates such a beautiful existence for not just yourself. It's the community piece is really incredible. So you essentially have chosen to train yourself for the uncomfortable that is unexpected by leaning into challenges, developing, being intentional to heal and grow and all of those things. And I think that's such an important piece to pay attention to, because often we feel like those of us who have experienced trauma and or stress, tricky things happening to us, we often think, oh, because I've navigated all this really hard stuff and all these hard things have happened to me, that I'm good, I'm super resilient. But that's not the case. Most likely we're navigating life in trauma response
I know.
until we do some healing and growing from that. So hard things alone don't make us resilient. We actually have to be actionable internally and externally to train ourselves for the unexpected.
Every time. Setting boundaries. One of my burnouts was I didn't have boundaries, right? That was in the real estate. I mean, it was a 24/7 nonstop, and I didn't have boundaries for myself. I didn't know how to set them, and I didn't know how to outwardly, portray that, say that, set those expectations. So each time you go through something really hard, pick the thing that was the most that you couldn't handle the most, and then fix that, right? You couldn't, I couldn't handle my actual physical being be sick all the time, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm fixing that one this time. You know what I mean? Next
Mm.
time, I'm building a business around my life, not building my life around business. That was this time, like
Yeah.
each
Yeah.
time you have to pick the thing that was like the worst, most icky, I don't know another way to describe it, and fix that for the next
I
time.
love it. Yeah. Just what's going to be different and better this next time, so that you're not constantly just spinning your wheels, feeling like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. You're disrupting the pattern, essentially, of like, oh, that was a thing before. How can I disrupt the pattern going into this next venture or level or whatever it is?
Mhm.
And that takes some thought and self-reflection for sure, which that can be hard to do if we haven't, again, been intentional about going inward and being able to be accountable, self-reflective, all of that, in order to see what can be different.
I feel like unless you're an entrepreneur and unless your growth, like I was lucky because my growth was always dependent on my networking, on my going to do professional development. Had I not started that journey of professional development, I wouldn't have met the humans that said you need mindset training, you need trauma therapy, not me particularly, but everybody needs all these really cool tools in your tool bag. I wouldn't have known that had I not been, it's had professional development not have been a necessity for me in my business, right? So
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who are employees, and they don't need to do professional and personal development, right? It's unless they're in their big corporate and they make them go, right? So I have been an advocate to all those people. Like, I know this is not a necessity, you don't think, but actually, because I did all these things, this is how it ended up. That, there's not the burnout this time. There's not the, oh my God, I got to quit my job. Oh my God, I can't handle this.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm luckier than some because I was forced, kind of, not really. I mean, but that's how I built my business was networking, right? Each
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Um, just knowing all these people. I mean, there's so many cool people.
You know so many people. I'm
And
telling you,
there's so
everybody.
many good ones.
Kelly knows everybody. Yeah, it's just like, what do you need? This is what I need. I know just the 10 people to connect you with. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just that, but not every entrepreneur understands the necessity of professional development. And so you adopt that new, like, I needed to move in this direction and keep leveling up. And
Yeah.
so you're on team professional development and you're just spreading the word around it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's for
Yeah.
sure. And personal development right along with it.
Well,
Can't
I
just
think they
professional
often
development.
go so hand in hand, right?
They
Like a
do.
lot of what you're talking about, you learned in business has also helped you in your personal and then vice versa. And the beauty of that kind of work, developing your social emotional health, which everything personal and professional falls under that umbrella, it is powerful in every context. We do need some practice, like generalizing those skills, I think, right? Being able to practice them in different spaces. But it's so beautiful that what you do in your personal life can positively impact your professional and vice versa.
For sure. But I feel like you said, people live in their heads. And so they're like, okay, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, I need to keep leveling up here professionally. I'm not sure that every business owner, successful business owner, I know for sure, don't marry personal development with that. They feel like that's separate. I don't have time for that. I don't, no, mm-mm. It needs to be together because your person is the one who's running the business. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes, exactly. And I love it too. I think it's interesting. I had a ping when you were talking about that. I imagine, at least for me and most of the people I've talked to, there's a feeling that we get about running a business or owning a company or that sort of thing. It's like we go with that feeling in our bodies of like, yes, that's what I want. And then what? We just go zoop up into our heads and we get all analytical and intellectualizing things when in reality, we do want to feel our way through life. We don't want to think our way because sometimes those thoughts are wonky. They're like the toddler who, like that we keep having to redirect, right? So being in our bodies is actually the safest place to be once we develop that safety through potentially some healing and growing.
100%. It's not
Yeah.
safe and it doesn't feel safe until you actually do the healing. And so they stick to the head, right?
Yeah.
That's just normal. And
Yeah.
I feel like it's the more we talk about mental health, the more we talk about healing the whole person out loud. And it's okay to talk about the uncomfortable like you're doing. I think then people will be okay to talk to each other about it. But until then, I feel like everybody just holds it like, no, no, I know. I can't talk about that. I don't want to deal with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree. I think we need to shine a light on it because everybody's struggling and having a hard time with the uncomfortable. It's an interesting thing though. I think this is kind of a funny story. So I'm a member of a business chamber in the area. And every once in a while at the meetings they'll have you stand up and give your little spiel, right? So I decided I was going to try something different. There are about 75 people in the room and I said, how many of you navigate discomfort in any way, shape, or form? You're a business owner, you're a parent, you were stuck in traffic this morning. How many of you navigate discomfort? Nothing. Not one. One person raised both arms in the whole room of 75 people. I was like, interesting. Okay, so we're not going to even just say, I was stuck in traffic and I was going to be late to this meeting, and that was really uncomfortable for me. I was very stressed. I was going to have to walk in late. No one could even make that connection. I just kind of giggled and said, well, okay, if you do, I'm the person for that. Here's what I offer, and I'm going to sit down. But it was just fascinating
wow.
how so many people in a room just couldn't speak to it and admit that that's the case when we all know there's no way you're moving through life without discomfort. There's,
Not no, not, but maybe they have no clue what that even means or how to handle it
which
or
is, yeah,
acknowledge it. Wow.
yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start rolling it back. And now I introduce myself in a little bit of a different way. But I think it was just eye-opening. And also, yeah, wild to me. So,
Wow. Because we're so in it, you and I are so in it
yeah.
that we feel like it's so normal.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. Ugh, totally just, uncomfortable at the moment. And not even be able to acknowledge it at all means there's so much more work for all of us to do have gone through it and who are comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's so wild because it does feel like an oxymoron that you can get comfortable being uncomfortable. But it just becomes easier. Like you said, I could have been when I got when you got the diagnosis for breast cancer, it could have been a whole different ball of wax if you hadn't paid attention to it earlier on. So it did make the uncomfortable more comfortable for you, yes? And
100%.
and we can all point to times where like, oh, it's great that I had that skill. Even like driving a car, that was so uncomfortable. You're anxious, you're checking all your mirrors all the time. And now we can show up in a place we have no idea how we even got there because we were on autopilot so much,
That's
right?
right.
It's the same thing. We can just become so much more comfortable with the uncomfortable, but you have to acknowledge the discomfort first
Yes.
and identify it and say, okay, have some self-awareness around it. But yeah,
Oh man.
very interesting experience. Good giggle for that one.
I
And
bet.
man, what would the world look like if we all had more skills to navigate the uncomfortable better? Our relationships, communities. Oh, so good.
Everything would be so
Yeah.
much better. Yeah. Well, you have no lack of business, no lack of people to help, right?
Yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here to help people navigate the uncomfortable better. Yeah, for sure. It sounds like that's a big part of what you do too. And I love that you're spreading the word about the personal and professional development because it is just that needs to be announced from the rooftops for sure.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun to get to do the entrepreneurial consulting piece of, our business because you just don't, people just come from corporate, they come from something else and they get into this and they're like, oh, I had no idea that I was going to be this uncomfortable, that I was going to have this many hats that I was going to do. I don't know how to do all of this.
Yeah.
To be able to be by their side and be a partner and walk them through that is so cool.
It's a gift. It's a gift to be walking people along this kind of journey. And it can be really fun too. That's the interesting piece about this. I think it also, because life is wildly hilarious sometimes, ridiculous even.
I know.
And so we can point to that and we can all relate to it. And here are some skills and strategies that can be so powerful. So
Exactly.
love this. Thank you so much, Kelly. I think people are going to get a lot from this conversation. And so I appreciate it. Is there anything that's on your horizon that you're navigating that feels uncomfortable that we might have a follow-up conversation around?
Growth, growing this business. We just hired two more people, so it's
Very cool.
exciting times. And anytime you're in growth mode as a business owner, it's uncomfortable, right?
Mm.
Because it's new. It's not new. I've done it however many times now,
Yeah.
growing a business, but it's navigating new horizons, it's really fun. It's really exciting, but we're got to be in the uncomfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure all of those links are in the show notes so folks can connect with you too. So thank you so much, Kelly, for our conversation today.
It was nice to talk to you.